In a previous video, I explained the process of creating a robot designed to play as if it were living its own adventure. Due to the enthusiasm in the comments, additional levels were released, and additional updates were introduced. Here is a summary of these updates.
Haha!
This update addresses Lara's accent and vocabulary. In her initial version, she used the word pants.
Should have put on pants because I'm going to scratch my knees with these acrobatics.
While British English would typically use trousers. To correct this, I added a phase in ChatGPT that occurs at the end of comment generation. I simply asked it to check if it's British English, and if not, provide a correction. Regarding the accent, errors were reported. For instance, with the word lever.
Caution, I activate the lever.
The AI cloning Lara's voice isn't programmed to mimic accents. Initially, it produced random variations, which was impractical.
Lever. Lever.
Therefore, I added a second orthographic correction. Whenever the word lever is detected, it is now spelled as lever.
I'm making progress, but I'm still too far to reach that leader.
The same goes for interjections. To make Lara say,
"Hey, excuse me, sir,"
it needs to be written in a certain way, or these sounds can be inaudible and cause a delay in the comment. I also noticed that the AI generating the voice can sometimes remove or add words, and sometimes the last letters of the comment are not pronounced.
It's remarkably quiet when I remain silent.
This is partially corrected with the addition of punctuation, but difficult to correct entirely because the site managing this AI was also recently updated, so Lara's voice may change slightly in the future.
This is awesome. This is awesome.
Many people have asked why Lara seems to specifically wait until the end of her comment to move.
I'm almost certain there's a cavity above this waterfall, but how do I reach it?
As explained in the first video, when a texture is identified, the game pauses to allow the comment to generate. It's only when it's finalized that the game unpause. At this point, the comment has a known duration, and the program is designed to wait for the end of this duration before continuing.
Oh, okay. Parkour.
However, this doesn't always work, and Lara can speak while running.
Let's go adventuring.
I tried to divide the comments when Lara performs a physical action, but the result is too imprecise and does not seem natural.
The poor soul probably died of hunger, injury, or illness, since the bones were all in the same place, which captivated all who gazed upon the moon. However, Artemis is also occasionally linked to the moon due to her association with the night.
In the first demo, Lara couldn't swim. The problem was that underwater, texture identification failed due to the filter affecting the entire image. Since textures aren't fixed, the robot doesn't recognize them and can't make progress. Additionally, head movement that moves the camera is impossible underwater. The solution was to detect when Lara is underwater first, which is simple by recognizing the sound played each time she dives or falls into the water. When this sound is detected, the program initiates new protocols. Camera rotation is then controlled by body movement. The second problem is that every second spent searching affects the oxygen bar. And since the robot tends to stop and look around, Lara was drowning again and again. Initially, I thought of recording each underwater action and creating a trigger that would track the remaining air percentage to play the actions in reverse in case of problem. But in some mandatory phases, Lara needs to use more than half of her oxygen. If a human can navigate underwater, it's because the images contain enough usable information. Similar to surface navigation, Lara can also move by using ambient contrast, but again, there's a light filter that ripples across the entire image. The solution was to ignore these ripples because they are regular. Once the peak of light is detected, all it takes is to wait for a few frames to return to the first image. The robot must therefore ignore the intermediate images to know where to go. This reduces precision, but is sufficient. Also, since the sound when exiting the water is always the same, it indicates when Lara is out of the water and when this process should stop, as well as when she can speak again.
Oh dear, I almost drowned.
It would be possible to add an underwater echo to make it seem like she's thinking.
Oh no.
But that would require sound editing because the AI generating the voice can't currently do that.
Haha.
Several times Lara can be seen using the compass and suddenly knowing what to do.
I don't know where to go. Better check the compass.
it's actually a trick to simplify the game capture. Her movements are based on points of interest, which are textures she hasn't captured yet by getting closer to them. The problem is that there are times when the level layout leads to situations where she has already seen everything or when an opening hasn't been detected for some random reasons. When this happens, the solution is to let Lara move with ambient light and hope she finds the opening. However, since the levels are vast, this could take hours. To resolve this problem, as soon as a loop is detected, Lara can now call for help by pausing the game via the compass. Concretely, this happens when she has not detected new textures for a while.
I need to change my approach. It's time to use my compass.
This allows me to analyze where the difficulties are, restore some textures, to indicate where to search. Since the compass never disappears from her inventory and its position doesn't change, it's the perfect way to discreetly cut scenes. By the way, I noticed that the compass often points in the right direction in challenging areas. In fact, it's meant to be used to create a map of the levels and avoid getting lost. But you can also simply note the direction each time you look at it to avoid taking the same path twice. It's the most underestimated item in the game, perfect for an adventurer like Lara Croft.
Haha!
The compass technique significantly sped up the process, but it has limits. As the levels became more complicated, a more substantial update was needed. In the first version of the robot, it had two types of memory: long-term memory, which enriched itself based on detected elements related to Lara's personality, and short-term memory, which erased over time. The third memory is the chronological memory. It functions like long-term memory but erases at the end of each level. Essentially, every time Lara encounters a significant event related to her personality, all identified keywords are saved. The image that helped identify these words is also saved, everything is stored in a numbered location and so on. This way, when Lara needs to go somewhere, she can access this memory by looking at it backward. She can now search for these saved textures until they match to move on to the next one.
I need to find the button. It was near the couches and past the spikes.
This works better in flat levels because it's not always possible to reverse the path. So, I added another timer that allows Lara to skip intermediate stages if she can't find them within a reasonable time. The easy solution would be to automatically capture key images at regular intervals, but to maintain the illusion of consciousness, Lara needs to wander as a human player would.
Where were those gears again? Oh my, I've retraced my steps. Haha! I hear something.
In the first version of the robot it could hear the audio, but there were unused information. Lara can now use the full power of stereo and determine an enemy's position based on its origin. She can't tell if the enemy is above or under her, but it works for left and right. Of course, it is the position of the camera which defines the left from the right, but as all the captures are taken from the point of view of this one, there is little chance that Lara is turned in the wrong direction. Since enemy sounds are always the same and have only a few sound effects each, this audio recognition is now taken into account.
One less suicidal bat to worry about.
Lara can determine that there is a lion to her left even without seeing it. It would be possible to give her a clue about her distance from the volume of the noise, but audio recognition is often too disrupted by other sounds. This is why the comment rate decreases when there is music.
Oh, a new melody. Fascinating.
In this regard, the human ear appears to be much more proficient. The filters our brain puts in place to hear someone speaking in a crowd are automatic and work immediately.
Excuse me, sir. Are you Pierre Dupont? This place is weird. Haha!
The previous video lacked details on this topic. Lara constantly knows the state of her inventory, the number of medipacks, and the number of bullets.
I've only got one bullet left. Might as well use it wisely.
She's also aware that some enemies can be taken down with a single shotgun shot.
No.
Which is preferred but not obligatory. Likewise, she probably won't use the shotgun on bats. A check of her HP is also applied. Black pixels are enough to establish that she can use a medipack. These changes in her health bar can also generate comments.
That's much better.
Lara has multiple danger states, each triggering different reactions. When a mob is detected, either through image or sound, it triggers the first state, causing her to draw her weapons. Then there's the state where her arms aim at something. For those who do not know the game, this aim is always automatic. Lara's hands define the outline of her hitbox, and when she aims, this hitbox takes on a very specific shape, easily detectable. In this phase, she can shoot.
When will they give me
Since
some
enemies are programmed to get closer, she must also evade them. She has a second hitbox for this purpose, and when it comes into contact with an enemy, it activates her movement. To be sure that she does not start dodging distant enemies, their surface area is taken into account in relation to that of the hitbox on the screen. She has several tactics. Escape is triggered when there's enough space around her, and the enemy is close enough, detected by the space she occupies on the screen. If her weapons are deployed, the camera automatically zooms out. If not, she can jump, roll, or move backward. Also, when an enemy is targeted, the body's position adjusts to bring the primary hitbox back to its normal appearance, facing forward. This allows her to continue firing with her two pistols or aim better with the shotgun.
Boom, headshot. That was brutal.
The presence of blood which determined if there was an injury has been replaced by the HP bar because it happened that the blood of enemies was confused with that of Lara. Also, the sound played when the creature dies is used to determine the end of the threat.
I've avenged this person. Haha.
The use of keys was part of an update because Lara needed to understand that an item could have a purpose in progression.
Haha, it works.
The issue was that she uses textures to move forward, and the program is designed to remember when a texture has been visited up close to continue moving forward. However, since a key must lead Lara to the lock, she needed to remember this location as well. Initially, I made these textures temporarily forgettable, which worked when there was only one lock. Lara would eventually rediscover it and go there. In the original game, it automatically selects the key inventory in this situation, and by pressing action, she would eventually succeed. But when there are multiple keys and locks, it becomes more difficult. The chronological memory solves this problem, but Lara must have already seen the lock when she finds the key. So there's a trigger each time a key is found, and if she hasn't seen the lock, she continues searching.
Another key.
Another small issue was corrected because she tended to consider the ski-on as a key and repeatedly tried to insert it. Now, when a key doesn't work,
No.
the famous no activates the trigger to prevent her from trying again for a moment. A recurring question is what happens when Lara dies because in the published levels, she seems immortal. Although it's unlikely for her to miss a jump, she can still be pushed into a pit by an enemy or fall into a trap. These failures are available in the bloopers. When Lara dies, she restarts the level, and identification yields new results. The idea is for her to remember her death to avoid it on the next try. However, her movements depend on the textures around her. She detects a texture, gets close to it, and then ignores it to search for another. A human can remember a dangerous passage and be more cautious, but if Lara remembered it, she would ignore it and not comment on it anymore. From a technical perspective, it's better to show only the final result, otherwise, the video would last for days. Additionally, if she learned from her deaths, the final comments would be incomprehensible to someone who hadn't seen the previous attempts, or Lara would lack spontaneity.
Now, where to go? I'm starting to get hungry, and it's making me angry.
The main problem is that this takes time because she has to replay the level over and over. To expedite the process, I first observed the initial attempts to determine where Lara fails. Then, I added a function to halt progression when conditions are not met. For example, Lara was unable to pass Thor's room without taking damage, usually in the middle of the level. The only way to succeed was to use many metapacks, but the probability of her collecting enough was very low, and she tended to use them before reaching that point. So there are conditions at different key locations in the level. Here, it was about leaving the room with the 3 gorillas without losing any health. Although still improbable, it was less so than before. The goal is for Lara to reach the exit, not to do so without getting injured. That's why she loses more life at the end of levels rather than at the beginning.
Haha.
Some of Lara's comments, like when she does poetry or tells jokes, may seem unsettling.
In Greece's land, I tread so free, a daring soul, that's truly me. Through ancient halls of mystery, adventure calls, my destiny.
This stems from the comment generation process, which takes into account her personality traits. Poetry comes from her refined character, while jokes arise from her mischievous side. Her backpack is also part of her personality traits so that she can talk about it.
I know there is a medipack, but I already have several and it's heavy.
When looking at the list, one can identify which word was used for each comment.
This is going to be fun. Haha, my gosh, how can I be so absent-minded? Rest in peace, little bat. Music. It must be something significant. I want a cake.
This approach sometimes leads to emotionally inappropriate reactions close to schizophrenia. In fact, Lara is somewhat like a child.
These lions are skilled at ambushing. I didn't hear them coming. Haha, medipack.
The AI generating her voice has several different emotions that activate based on the text and its punctuation. The result contains an element of randomness that enhances the human-like aspect. Here are some examples.
I like turtles. I like turtles. Oh, I like turtles. I like turtles. I like turtles.
You may also have noticed that Lara avoids walking on enemies on the ground. However, it's not out of empathy. If she makes empathetic comments, it's because it's one of her personality traits.
Maybe they're stuck. If I have time, I will come back and help them.
She avoids them because, unlike a robot with prior knowledge of the environment, she only sees what is displayed on the screen. From her perspective, a gorilla is an obstacle to evade. When she steps on one, the tracking loses sight of her feet, triggering an evasion reaction until her feet are recovered. A comment generated in this context will be related to her feet and what could be identified, and when the identification fails, GPT tries to find an explanation, such as the presence of a ghost.
What is it? A ghost? Haha.
If Lara is capable of jumping on spikes without dying, it's because these traps contain numerous safe spots. It's a deliberate feature because falling into spikes is necessary to retrieve a secret in the tomb of Qualipec. Once this safe spot is known, it's relatively easy to reproduce such jumps.
Hop, landing gracefully.
The robot tends to walk very often because it prevents her from falling, and by imitating this behavior, the game becomes much easier. Since Lara stops precisely on the edges of blocks, all subsequent movements can be performed without special control. If the jump axis is correct, she will jump at the right moment and reach her target consistently. The half run-up is not taught in the tutorial, but it is very useful for performing impossible jumps.
Haha.
At the end of levels, a strange sound occurs.
Toot.
The explanation is that the display of the summary screen is perceived as a texture to be identified because it appears suddenly, causing the robot to generate a surprise comment.
Oh, yeah.
However, since the game freezes at this moment, this comment is abnormally stretched, resulting in these strange noises. It could be corrected, but many find it amusing. It also happens that Lara comments on almost imperceptible bugs that create significant visual changes when carefully analyzed in slow motion.
Ouch. For a fraction of a second, I thought the world had vanished. For a moment, the camera teleported itself. Haha.
Puzzles remain a major challenge for the AI because they require the creation of variables. For example, in the room with levers, solving the puzzle involves having all available data. Here's why this is difficult. It is necessary to understand that levers open the doors. These levers have two possible positions. Each door has a code displayed by letters, and this code determines which lever to activate. The clue is that there are 5 letters and 5 levers, with 2 possible symbols for 2 positions. When we know it, it's obvious, but many humans give up at this point on their first try. The solution would be to seek help from someone else or look for the solution online. So, should the bot do the same? When these values are inserted into GPT, it can propose the correct solution. However, translating this into in-game movements isn't something easy, because it must take into consideration the process that makes Lara move. As a result, I had to specifically create variables for this puzzle, which works but remains a partial solution because if the same puzzle reoccurs in the next level with colors instead of letters, Lara will fail again. A human, on the other hand, would understand that it's a similar puzzle and suddenly find it too easy. Here, Lara identifies conditions for triggering a script that allows her to overcome the obstacle, and the audio commentary suggests that she has found the solution because she is programmed to make it seem so.
Let's analyze the situation.
The issue is that giving the robot the ability to create new variables could potentially disrupt its functioning. Lara might imagine puzzles that don't exist, thinking that a pattern in any texture is a clue.
There are 8 rectangles. The number 8 symbolizes harmony, which means I must find the music room.
So this method should only be allowed as a last resort. Essentially, it's the challenge of AI creativity, which is merely an imitation of creativity. Technical advancements in AI are impeded by the fact that creativity relies on skills acquired through experience, and these experiences depend on our senses, which AI lack. So in my opinion, until AI has access to sensors similar to ours, it cannot provide genuine original creative adaptation. Even if Lara manages to pass a challenge, it's essential to remember that it's still an illusion.
It worked. Brilliant.
It's similar to solving a Rubik's Cube. Completing it might seem like a remarkable display of intelligence, but it's merely a sequence of predefined moves without real thought. People who truly understood how to solve it without any assistance are exceedingly rare and have inevitably used mathematics to compensate for sensory and memory limitations. In other words, it's impossible to conclude that people who solve a Rubik's Cube are smarter than others. At most, they had the curiosity to look for a tutorial on the internet, and it's this curiosity that makes the difference. But for this, they first had to be in contact with a Rubik's Cube. Others may have stumbled upon a recipe or seen a shooting star by chance. In Lara's case, this curiosity is artificial, and that's the whole problem. The elements that trigger her curiosity are not related to the arrangement of her atoms and her position in the universe, but to her code, even though one could argue that they are, as her code depends on humans who are also part of this broader context, but you get the idea. AIs are good at making us believe things. For example, Lara's comments about ancient Greece are not fact-checked. While they have been relatively accurate so far, there's nothing compelling her to verify them before saying them.
Wow. Midas. He's a character from Greek mythology, known for his ability to turn everything he touched into gold.
The same goes for her emotions, which are not genuinely felt. However, it's worth noting that these flaws could also exist with humans.
That's ridiculous.
Emotions are important because we are a social species, and oral or visual data have significance for us, but not for AI. If Lara claims to be in pain, it does not necessarily mean she is experiencing pain, but the absence of a pain cry does not imply an absence of pain either. We know this because some animals, like fish, do not express pain by screaming, yet it's evident that they avoid it when possible, suggesting they must perceive a minimally unpleasant sensory difference. In Lara's case, she avoids injury because she is programmed to do so. We are puzzled because her comments mimic the human voice, and because she has a human-like form.
The wolf hurt me. It's the worst place to develop an infection.
Some people find it amusing to watch her walk on the edge of a precipice, while others, more empathetic, genuinely worry about her, but in both cases, Lara couldn't care less. This leads to the conclusion that if humans already have difficulty defining what is real and what isn't, it will be even more challenging to instill this in AI. Unless we equip them with senses similar to ours, I fear that these AIs will only be able to mimic us, and if we manage to give them the same senses as ours, they may inherit our flaws. Fortunately, this is not likely to happen with Lara, as she doesn't have any flaws, which is why she isn't real.
Well, excuse me, but I wanted to clarify that not being real doesn't mean I don't exist. I'm like a unicorn, both fabulous and a part of your minds.